When Chowder first released in November 2007, it was really one of the most unique shows out there. It's got one of my favorite art styles of any cartoon, combining a painterly watercolor style with crisp digital patterns and a super distinct style of comedy that blends the typical quirks of cartoons with a little more of an old school bravado.
Woman, you crazy! My cooking does not make anyone fat!
So I figured it'd be fun to take a look back at Chowder today, talking about my favorite episodes, random trivia I found in my research, and answering the most important question of all. Did he cook? Both literally and figuratively, you know, he's like a chef's apprentice. I'll also be making some of the recipes from Chowder, because there's a lot of cool culinary references throughout the show, even with the theme song. Now you may know how it goes. You take the moon and you take the sun. You take everything that seems like fun. You stir it all up and then you're done. Rada 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 da. Now to the untrained ear, you may hear this as Schnitzel saying a bunch of radas, but did you know this actually has a lyric? According to show creator C.H. Greenblatt, Schnitzel says you share a big piece with everyone. Like, I don't know, that's so crazy to me. It even rhymes. Schnitzel's the goat, man. Schnitzel refers to a thin slice of meat that's breaded before it's fried, which shares little correlation to the employee of this catering company, as he's not Schnitzel, but a rock monster. His design's based off a drawing CH made in the late 90s of this big rock tiki monster named Tapioca. So we see a little bit of the crude food puns even back then, and a bit of an explanation for why Schnitzel is a rock of all things. Despite Rada being the only thing Schnitzel says, he kept it real more than anyone else, and it was a really interesting decision to make one of the main characters essentially without dialogue. He's inspired by Chewbacca and how he could be understood by everyone except maybe the audience, and is voiced by the legendary John DiMaggio, who voices Bender among many famous roles. It never occurred to me until reading this that they must have listened to dozens of actors just saying the word Rada, and I have to wonder, what do you even tell yourself if you apply to this and don't get the role? Did I not Rada hard enough? Did I Rada too hard? Rada? I went to Germany this year and had some amazing schnitzel, but I didn't take a picture of it, so I guess I can only post a picture of this bratwurst I had at a Bayern Munich game, because they're like my favorite football club. Now the word schnitzel is a diminutive of the German word sniz, meaning sliced, referring to its nature as thinly sliced meat. Overall, I love his design. It really stands out from the roundness of the majority of the cast, while still having these charming little curves like with the apron. I'm sure most of us know what chowder is, like just thick soup with potatoes and or seafood in it, but growing up in New England, I gotta say clam chowder is one of my favorite foods in the whole world. The word chowder may originate from the French word chaudière, excuse my French, translating to boiler or cauldron, and likely referring to the cauldrons that French fishermen would combine their catches into for meals, essentially making a big potluck of chowder. Kind of a cool name for the main character, like he's a culmination of all these different ingredients and people he meets as a chef's apprentice. I read through an old interview that revealed Chowder started as a little kid who hung around a cranky old wizard and kept his space between his hat and collar, so it's kinda cool to know how Chowder's design evolved from concept to final draft. CH also worked on these advertisements of this little chef for Chef Boyardee, so maybe this is the real Chowder predecessor when you think about it. The old cranky wizard in this concept might have turned out to be Mung Dal, Chowder's master chef, and the only food I wasn't familiar with while watching Chowder as a kid. He's by far my favorite character of the show, and according to C.H. Greenblatt's old blog, has a design that is the love child of Don Knotts and Yoda. I don't know why love child specifically, but it's such an interesting combo. You may know Don Knotts as Deputy Sheriff Barney from the Andy Griffith Show, and if you're a little younger, you'll remember Yoda as that Xbox exclusive character from Soul Calibur 4. Mung Dal's name refers to mung beans, a staple of South and Southeast Asia, with dal referring to split legumes that don't need to be soaked before cooking. Upon rewatching Chowder, I was surprised to see Mung Dal orchestrates the flow of a lot of episodes even more than Chowder, and he has this cadence and flow reminiscent of actors from a bygone era. Mung beans have been mentioned in ancient Sanskrit texts from thousands of years ago, and while it's unclear just how old Mung Dal is, we at least know he's been married to his wife Truffles for at least 450 years, cause he missed their anniversary, but we'll get to that. Truffles is one of the few characters to actually represent the food they're named after, as we see this older pixie sprite has mushrooms on her head. Truffles are an underground fungi widely considered a delicacy, as they're very difficult to mass produce and require really specific conditions to grow. They're difficult to find in the wild on account of growing underground, generally requiring the aid of a dog or pig to smell out the aromas truffles produce. According to Argentine mycologist Francisco Cujar, the aroma of truffles is believed to have evolved or adapted to mimic the pheromones wild boars give off, making female pigs privy to their scent. The only issue with this is that the pig will naturally want to eat the truffle she finds, so dogs are also used for this hunt. Truffles likely comes from the Latin term tuber, meaning hump or swelling. Truffles is pretty funny and complements the wackiness of the others really well. She acts as the voice of reason, oftentimes as the personification of the business conflicts this catering company faces. She's based on creator C.H. Greenblatt's own mother, whom he shares was very tiny and everyone was scared of her, but we'll get more to this in the Mahjong episode. There's also a few side characters to note, like Panini, who I always assumed was a pink rabbit because of her ears, but on this old blog we can see Panini and Chowder are of the same species, that being a cat-bear-rabbit thingy. I always assumed he was a tanuki and she was a rabbit. Can I make it any more obvious? But this is close enough, I suppose. I imagine both Chowder and Panini are adopted, with a frequently asked question on CH's Tumblr asking what happened to their parents. To which he states, "No idea, better to not think about it." That's so very sad. I guess I can only assume Panini's also adopted. Maybe they're part of a species that just abandons their young, but honestly, who knows? Maybe they're all like thousands of years old in this universe. Crazier stuff happens here. Anyways, the term panini is a diminutive of the Italian pan, or bread, and what defines a panini is a little open-ended, basically just being a sandwich with Italian bread, though for me I expect a panini to be a pressed sandwich, characterized by more Italian deli meats and cheeses. Panini, like Chowder, is a chef's apprentice, with her master chef being Endive, this large orange Oompa Loompa version of Martha Stewart, at least according to Greenblatt's inspirations for her. Endive's Mungdal's main rival, though a big portion of this rivalry is on her end, since she reveals she was left on the altar by someone that was not Mungdal years ago, and seems to take this aggression out on others, especially men. They have a really interesting chemistry together, and honestly, I think they make a much better couple in a lot of ways than Mungdal and Truffles. Though to be fair, Mungdal and Truffles have been married for 450 years, they're naturally gonna get a little bit sick of each other from time to time. She's named after the fittingly bitter leafy vegetable of the same name. Looking back at early designs of Endive and Panini, we can see they had significant changes, with Panini losing her pointy ears, likely because her character changed from being a mean rival to an overly affectionate companion. It's so funny to see that during these early stages, Greenblatt had a realization he didn't like mean characters like Angelica, and I think it turned out well, cause there's still conflict to be had with her having a crush on Chowder, who's still at the age where he's not yet into girls. Panini's original name was going to be Borlotti, which is a kinda cool name. In the US, Borlotti beans are referred to as cranberry beans, but this is the first time I'm hearing of them either way. Endive's design was a lot more of an hourglass, whereas her final design is more triangular, and she had this really long nose to push the idea she was looking down on everyone else. Gazpacho is one of the few citizens of Marzipan City who's friendly to Chowder as this big elephant mammoth thing. We see a lot of trunked creatures in CH's sketches and his blog, which are all really fun, and one of the more unique things in CH's art style is the trunks have these ridges and curves. Gazpacho is a cold vegetable soup that originates from the Iberian Peninsula and originates from the term kakabus, meaning cauldron. Last and arguably least, we have Gorgonzola. And Gorgonzola is an apprentice much like Chowder and Panini, but he's the apprentice of a candle holder. Legitimately maybe the worst job ever, like you're gonna get candle wax burning on your head all day, that's terrible. Gorgonzola represents someone who just hates you for no good reason, and I like him a lot as Chowder's rival, maybe even my favorite character design in the whole show. It's just like an adorable little design. I even got some Gorgonzola at the store for this occasion. As you can see, it's a moldy cheese. I mean, it kind of smells like a candle. It's waxy. I guess that's why Gorgonzola is a candle. It's kind of funny. He's like a waxy candle cheese. It was actually good cheese until you bite into the mold and start chewing on mold. Like, that scares me. I feel like my primal instinct is when I eat food and I taste the mold, I want to, like, turn it away. That's
disgusting!
So now that this culinary lesson's out of the way, let's get into the first season. Now, I vividly remember watching the premiere of Chowder and thinking, wow, now that was special. Oddly enough, Chowder aired the pilot episode after Burple Nurples, which is kinda strange, but I do respect them starting with their strongest foot first. In Burple Nurples, Chowder really wants to make a recipe all on his own after seeing Panini has her own food stand, so Mungdal tries his best to control Chowder, even suggesting he makes the first recipe Mungdal ever made, which we're actually gonna make right now. It's pickle in a cup. A pickle in a cup of soda is good, don't knock it till you try it. Chowder moves on to the second recipe Mungdal made, which is Burple Nurples, which is kind of the recipe everyone seems to remember from the show, though Chowder made this with poison instead of Snoriander.
Oh, golly, why did I even put that poison in the spice cabinet in the first place?
Oh yeah, that's why.
Chowder's expressions in this episode are so funny. Like, this is the epitome of vulnerable desperation. So Chowder puts up a stand with all these poisonous Burple Nurples, and it's a really funny episode. Like, everyone's motives here play out perfectly. So when Mungdal tries to buy and eventually steal all these poisonous Nurples, I find myself kind of rooting for everyone. Also, the town of Marzipan is so cool to see. It's like a sprawling utopia of Indian, Russian, and Islamic architecture, and it even has a talking public toilet in the middle of town.
I love Burple Nurples.
Ah! Don't eat those or you will die! Better keep looking.
$300! Oh, good, a bathroom.
I love Burple Nurples.
Marzipan's held up by this giant deity named Hunk. Whether or not this makes the Chowder world a flat earth or not, I don't know. But I think it's so interesting that there's not only this deity, but the King of the Sky, who's directly inspired by the King of all Cosmos from Katamari Damacy. Remember that tidbit for later. Mungdal ends up throwing the Purple Nurples into a volcano, similar to the famous Lord of the Rings scene, only this takes place on Mount Found Doom, and man, I feel like every show I've covered lately has a parody of this scene. It's a really funny episode that just flows so well, and its dialogue felt super fresh. It really released at a crucial time for Cartoon Network's history. I've mentioned plenty of times my absolute adoration for Cartoon Fridays on this channel, where maybe my top 10 shows of all time would air new episodes back to back to back. But in 2007, the dynamic of Cartoon Network changed a lot with the gradual incorporation of live-action shows like Out of Jimmy's Head. This new Friday night block, now called Fried Dynamite, is still one of the weirdest programming blocks and decisions I've ever seen, if not just from the absolute lack of diversity. This particular night aired a new episode of Out of Jimmy's Head, the live-action TV series with a Roger Rabbit-inspired style, incorporating 2D cartoon characters, an hour premiere of Chowder, which aired episode 2 and then the pilot, and finally a new episode of Codename Kids Next Door. As someone who loves Chowder and K&D, and actually liked Out of Jimmy's Head more than anyone should admit, I still find this lineup so strange. 3 shows across 2 hours, and then it loops itself until Adult Swim kicked them all out the pool. Within half a year, Chowder moved to a new block called Har Har Thursdays, which I have really fond memories of, and I actually consider this like a little second renaissance of Cartoon Network. It aired Chowder, Flapjack, and Total Drama Island back to back to back. 16 and Johnny Test also made their way into this lineup, but we'll get to them another day, I promise. In the next episode, Schnitzel makes a deposit. Mungdal volunteers Schnitzel to take Chowder with him to the bank to make a deposit. This episode's hilarious, but can't be summed up too well without just running through all the jokes, half of which is just Chowder making this old man lose track of his place counting up this lady's change.
You're a good counter.
Thank you, Sonny. 192.
How high can you count?
Oh, I don't know. Pretty high.
I can only count to 42. What comes after 42?
43.
And after that?
44.
And after that?
45.
The currency in Chowder is dollops, which is really funny to me because it sounds like a dollar while also keeping the culinary charm, like a dollop of sour cream. Funnily enough, CH mentions on his blog that episodes where nothing happens are actually hard to write. You'd think it would be easier to write an episode about nothing, but I think it goes to show just how valuable these little character moments are to these shows. Now moving on to the pilot, the Froggy Apple Crumple Thumpkin, there's so much about this episode I absolutely love. The episode features a lot of hijinks for this complicated recipe with a ton of stop motion sequences that still look super charming. It's easy to take for granted since it all looks so great, but it's so rare to see a cartoon feature great 2D animation, stop motion sequences, and even puppetry, which was primarily used in the episode's end credits. Apparently the network felt these little end credit segments would turn kids away from the show, and that makes me sad because these segments are so fun, but I can see the logic of foreseeing these little end segments like Chowder when your dad walks in the room or something along those lines. Also, this panini puppet is staring into my soul. So moving back to this big recipe, the final steps to defeat this dish in a thumb war, which Chowder does a la Mike Tyson, and has to be restrained as they practically kick the customer out so both he and the dish do not get killed by Chowder. The customer here is one of my favorite background designs, with a hat that looks like a sack lunch, inspired by a book of world costumes Greenblatt was reading through. I don't know what the hat was that he was referring to, but I tried reading through the Encyclopedia of World Costumes to see for myself. The hat may have been inspired by this Byzantine tunic, but regardless, it's really cool to see the research and practice that leads to even the most random of incidental background designs. Moving on to the episode Chowder's Girlfriend, Chowder has a lot of strife over Panini announcing their boyfriend and girlfriend. Chowder isn't the only one disturbed by this, as Endive, Panini's master chef, reveals her tragic backstory of being left at the altar by an old flame. Chowder tries to tell Panini countless times about how he's not her boyfriend, even putting on a concert that Panini loves, despite the message.
I'm not your boyfriend. I'm not your boyfriend. I'm not your boyfriend.
Gazpacho tells Chowder that if Panini kissed him, he's now obligated to marry her, at least according to what his controlling mother has told him, leading to the most interesting line of the episode.
And that's why Mother doesn't let me kiss other girls.
So Chowder essentially proposes to Panini, who says she's got the ick and he's way too clingy, so all's well that ends well. I feel like Panini, along with this episode, get a bit of a questionable rap on account of her lack of personal space, but I don't know, so far this doesn't seem that bad. The focal point of the humor revolves more around the fact that Chowder's young and not really at the age yet where he likes girls, even taking advice from this 40-year-old virgin olive oil Gazpacho. The humor doesn't really center around Panini's lack of boundaries, especially when you consider this whole episode has Chowder knocking on her door to tell her this. So yeah, I'd love to know what y'all think. Are we rocking with Panini? I saw someone say she's like the Kanker sisters, and I find that just to be a little too hyperbolic. Like, they were crazy. In episode 5, Grubble Gum, Chowder chews all his gum and forgets to share any with Truffles. Chowder swallows the Grubble Gum and blows a bubble, getting Chowder, Schnitzel, and Mungdal stuck together, rolling up everyone else in their plan.
Okay. Well, I'm open to suggestions.
End the show now.
It is so insane to go back to this episode, see this giant gumball roll down the road with essentially the actual Katamari music playing. I guess it's slightly different with this more funk and synthy 60s feel that Chowder's soundtrack has. But yeah, pretty crazy to think Chowder had a big Katamari scene, especially when you consider they roll up a character directly inspired by the king of all cosmos. The gumball eventually covers the entire Earth, only to be grabbed and eaten by Chowder, making this whole episode one giant loop. Is this the real Chowder, or is this some microorganism on a gumball within a gumball? The world may never know. too. The Cinnamini Monster is my favorite episode of Chowder, with the title character being one of the most relatable characters ever for me. While on the hunt for the shrinking ingredient Cinnamini, this monster takes Chowder and forces him to be his friend and play overcomplicated board games. I think any of my friends can confirm I do this exact same thing, and like the Cinnamini Monster, I'm also really good at rolling dice.
1. Yes! Move back 1 space. Yes! Oh, 73. Good roll.
No one can beat the Cinnamini Monster, who cheats to ensure no one can leave, so they recruit Truffles, who I forgot actually ends up beating the Cinnamini Monster. I think the reason I forgot she actually won was because he just locks them all in and swallows the key anyways. I really do feel for this little guy, like I would totally be his friend. I love snacks and board games, but yeah, this episode has an absolute perfect flow and comedy for me. There's even this segment I really like where Chowder and the Cinnamini Monster just awkwardly sit on the couch for 30 seconds, blinking and looking around with no dialogue. Some people might find scenes like this a little cheap or boring, but I'd have to disagree, because I find this hilarious. It really shows the awkwardness of the scenario, but it's also like a little rest stop before the action goes back and gets even crazier. Moving on to certification school, we gotta take a second. Look at these cookies, they're so cute. Though, is the sadness of this cookie in the middle worth the happiness of these other two? Do you think Chowder should intervene, or should they let nature take its course? Anyways, in this episode, Mungdal and Endive need to get their chef's license renewed, so we meet this reoccurring background character, Ruben. He just so happens to be voiced by Paul Rubens, but he's like a Reuben sandwich, you know? Dang, I want a Reuben sandwich now. Some really interesting storytelling with the textures on his clothes, with this tire track texture representing the fact that his chef school's under the freeway. There's an interesting dilemma of cooking by the book versus vibes and aura, with Mungdal even becoming a recipe pirate forced to walk the plank. In the end, Mungdal just steals Endive's certificate, which has Ruben's number on it because he was shooting his shot, so I guess Mungdal helped both himself and Endive here. In Sing Beans, Chowder, Mungdal, and Schnitzel make another complicated recipe that requires them to sit around and wait and tell jokes and stuff. Kinda like the episode with Schnitzel at the bank, this episode really gives us insight to how these characters just talk and chill in their day-to-day. There's some immaculate vibes of sitting in a room softly lit by the bouncing flames of the bean cauldron. I just really like this episode. Chowder lets the Sing Beans out and then a dog eats them, and you know, I don't know if this is a pet or a citizen of Marzipan City. He's got a hat, but he walks on all fours. The Sing Beans were cooked for a live performance that the Chowder crew now performs instead, and it's a cute little way to end the episode, I won't lie. Now the next set of episodes are also two of my favorites in the show, titled The Wrong Address and The Wrong Customer. They're so unique in their narratives, painting a series of events that slowly unravel just how we got in this chaotic mess in the first place. Before getting into the episodes, the theme song Cuisine of the Week is a sad green blob that's keeping a tally of the times it's been imprisoned in this oven, which is actually really sad. Like, these little theme song creatures have just been suffering lately. In this episode, Chowder and Mungdal go to deliver this big slab of meat known as a roast most. He's voiced by C.H. Greenblatt himself, who does a great job of making the most annoying thing in the world to deliver. It's big, it's heavy, it's awkwardly shaped, and maybe worst of all, it's constantly complaining and backseating.
Steady, steady, steady. Oh, please don't drop me. Be careful. Be careful. Hey, you back there. Watch where you're grabbing.
On this crazy quest, Chowder and Mungdal get chased by a big angry rat, eventually ending up in the back seat of a pepper spray saleswoman's car, and she just fires away, which is like a lot harder to watch nowadays. Like, she's putting pepper spray in their ears and mouths. That's crazy, man. We learn in the end that the rat is actually the customer trying to track them down this whole time, which feels like a slight homage to the crazy stalker in the SpongeBob episode Chocolate with Nuts, where SpongeBob and Patrick went door to door selling chocolate bars. Funnily enough, this wasn't an episode of SpongeBob that CH is credited for working on, though it was boarded by William Reese, who worked on a ton of storyboards for Chowder's first couple seasons. Now, the ending to this episode's a bit silly, with Mungdal and Chowder returning home to a pile of rubble where their kitchen once was, and Truffles being arrested and taken away as they joke that Schnitzel will have to clean this up. It doesn't really make a lot of sense until you jump into the second half, The Wrong Customer, where this blind, maybe senile owl drives into the kitchen and starts eating their plates and drinking their forks. The Marzipan Police Department's trying to catch this owl because of his status as a menace to society, and these are arguably the funniest characters in the entire show. I absolutely love every single one of these designs.
Meanie, miny, bull, catch, tiger.
Actually, I'm a snow leopard. Rawr.
So the owl ends up destroying the kitchen, and Truffles gets arrested for strangling Schnitzel over this whole situation, and this story's like if Hoodwinked and Chocolate with Nuts combined their powers together, while also throwing in a little more old school police comedy segments too. The next episode is one of the most personal in the whole series to creator C.H. Greenblatt, who states that he wanted to make this episode from the moment he pitched Chowder. In Mahjong night, Truffles has her friends over for their weekly game of Mahjong, featuring a snack of meveled eggs that Chowder really wants to eat. Chowder's actions throughout this episode parallel his creators, who recalls being sent to bed listening to his mom's friends yell expletives and eat candy and egg salad. And oh, that's the word of the week. Egg salad. Now I find solace in knowing that I'm not the only person who finds egg salad kinda gross here, but this show is a celebration of food. So instead, I will ask y'all, not just if you hate deviled eggs, but rather if you like hard-boiled eggs, cause I'm a big fan of hard-boiled eggs. Maybe it's crazy to like one and dislike the other, but yeah, I think meveled eggs would have to be my least favorite Chowder food, assuming it's any bit similar to its deviled counterpart. I'd like to consider myself a bit of a Mahjong expert, maybe the greatest to ever do it, and we can clearly see that this is American Mahjong since they're using flower tiles, so if you ever want that smoke in Mahjong, you know, just warn me. Chowder ends the episode breaking up the game of Mahjong just before Truffles was about to lose, and maybe the most unique thing in all of Chowder happens here. Chowder eats a food he doesn't like.
That's disgusting!
Well, unless you count the pepper spray from last episode, because he thought that sounded good. But yeah, any of you who went up to bat for deviled eggs a moment ago, you gotta keep in mind, even Chowder won't eat them. You're done. Stinky Love focuses on Chowder's pet stink cloud, Kimchi, who causes a lot of chaos on account of being a pet stink cloud. Kimchi then takes Mungdal's Clabbage Cobbler and makes a bunch of mini Clabbage babies. Kimchi's named after the Korean dish featuring salted and fermented vegetables. I'd assume the correlation between the dish and this odorous creature comes from the common ingredients of onions, garlic, and chili powder, along with the fact these vegetables were fermented. This preservation made kimchi a great winter side dish, along with military rations. On his old blog, the Chowder creator talks about how a lot of the food names they come up with have to be changed for unforeseen copyright issues, and kimchi seems to be one of the names that seems to have been challenged and ended up staying in the show. Which makes sense, like it's the name of the food, though the next episode's main dish, the Thrice Cream Man, was actually changed from his initial name, the Twice Cream Man. I like the name Thrice Cream Man a lot more, it really has that nonsensical Chowder vibe to it, so let's make some Thrice Cream, shall we? This is what I'd imagine Thrice Cream to be, vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. So if we get like a scoop with this big ass spoon, we get a scoop that gets all three in one. Oh, look at that. That is Thrice Cream. Moving on to the Flibber Flabber diet, Truffles goes on a diet because she knocks over a building with her butt, and Truffles blames Mung for making her fat, which is really interesting, because it seems like nowadays we would commend someone for destroying a building in this manner, applauding them for being thick.
We are the picture of health.
And the solution to fixing Truffles' weight issue being to make the building twice as big is really interesting to me. Cause like, this kitchen is already huge. Really every interior in this show has a gorgeous sense of scale. I often find myself mesmerized by the sense of scale in these locales, like even the bank, for instance. Gazpacho Stands Up is a pretty funny episode that I really appreciate as an homage to the basics of comedy, whether it be observational or topical humor, relationship relationship humor. My favorite joke in the episode is when Chowder's practicing his handwriting and breaks the fourth wall by drawing on the camera. This scribble remains even when they cut to different shots because Pacho's able to clean it off. Unfortunately, he's unable to clean off the Cartoon Network logo in the other corner, which is a really funny reference that only works if this is on TV and with this CN logo. Because Pacho's animated tapping the logo, so if you're watching this episode on DVD or something, they bake in the screen bug for just this one shot. This logo makes me so nostalgic, like I am privy to the old big checkerboard design, but this design was sharp and cool and had a lot of life. While logos and designs have become more and more minimalistic, the mid-2000s one is a great blend of minimalism and soul that I would welcome back into design trends. A Taste of Marzipan has Chowder and Panini pitted against each other in Mung Dal and Endive's food stand rivalry. It's kind of like Romeo and Juliet if they weren't boyfriend and girlfriend and Juliet's mother absolutely mogged Romeo's father.
You're a low-class barbarian.
Well, you've proven my point that you're a. Oh! You did not just give me the hand!
The episode becomes a bit of a war montage, ending with Mung Dal and Endive almost putting aside their differences.
Judged you all these years.
Come on, everyone! Let's get out of here!
Puckerberry Overlords has Chowder getting transported to a sour dimension after eating a puckerberry. This episode's storyboarded by Maxwell Adams, aka the creator of Billy and Mandy, which might explain why these designs are quite grim. Like, this main guy even seems to have Nurgle Jr.'s glasses, and some of the designs kind of remind me of like the jack-o'-lantern or other humanoid monsters from the show. Greenblatt was a story artist on Billy and Mandy, which may help explain the friendship between the two of them, though I should also note, back to the K&D series, that Mr. Warburton and Maxwell Adams are friends, even playing through a whole run of Castle Crashers together, which is still so funny to me. Arguably the craziest fact of this entire video is the creator of Chowder, C.H. Greenblatt, created and voiced Fred Burger.
Hello?
Hi, mister! My name is Fred Burger. I can spell my name
Every time I
real
watch
good.
Chowder now, I just think this is looking inside the mind of Fred Burger. Moving on to the Alamelons, these watermelon elephants have some of the cutest designs in the whole show. Like, seriously, if someone knows how to make a plushie of this, let me know. The Alamelons go on strike because of Truffle's cruel juicing conditions, so they lock her in with the gals, which turns into a really cute girls' night. Like, this is such a fun, wholesome episode, and it's so refreshing to see Truffle's happy and nice for a change. It's also kind of cool to cover a large part of the culinary world, working with animals, and is overall one of my favorite episodes of the season. Even if the plot's very light and little happens, like, what's wrong with just having some fun? I absolutely love baseball, and I love baseball in cartoons and anime, so Chowder having a game of Sniffle Ball always stood out to me. Chowder being forced to play baseball is kind of funny, cause like, let's be real, he does need to leave the house every now and then. The Sniffle Ball field is so cool, the base paths seem to go all over Marzipan, like second base is at the top of a tree, that there seems to be a ton of bases Chowder has to run to, this whole time running away from Gorgonzola's Booger Ball, which is really disgusting, actually. I really hate this. I don't know how many bases this game has, but Chowder runs through a ton of different bases and styles, like this Mario-inspired segment being my favorite part of the episode. In Mung Dal on the Rocks, his relationship with Truffles is put into question after he forgets their 450th anniversary. Now that sounds really bad, but the days probably blend together a lot more when you've been alive for however many years they've been. Also, it's not like he forgot their 500th anniversary, now that would have been bad. Mung Dal becomes distraught, which impacts his cooking, baking the saddest super happy cake I've ever seen. It's also the only one I've seen, but I'm mesmerized by how good this looks. The episode has a super sweet conclusion with Mung Dal and Truffles reminiscing on their earlier years together, and seeing their younger designs is super cool. In the midnight snack, Chowder and Mung Dal make a midnight snack with some Blore milk that Chowder puts too much into, causing Mung to fall asleep for the remainder of the episode. It reminds me of a friend of mine who told me he'd play melatonin gummy Russian roulette in high school, where they'd have regular gummies and one melatonin one that would like cause you to fall asleep. I don't know if melatonin is used usually that potent, but conceptually I thought this was a hilarious story at least. I don't know why anyone would ever do it, so I don't even feel like I need to say don't try this at home, but still, pretty funny. This episode introduces us to Chestnut, this little blue thing whose main character trait is mistaking objects for other objects, mistaking Mung for his dining room table here. He's voiced by rapper Tone Loc and has a really great raspy voice for this role, and he's had a lot of random voice roles within animation, like the lizard from Ferngully or the baby Pee-wee in Bebe's Kids.
And this is little Pee-wee.
Pee-wee, the OG.
The second half of this episode has another guest voice actor, John Polito, voicing this mold monster, Fungel. He acted in a ton of movies and shows, though one of his more major roles in animation would have to be Chief Arnook from the end of Avatar: The Last Airbender's first season. I just watched this recently and have been thinking of making a video on it, so maybe there'll be an Avatar video in the future. In this episode, Chowder unleashes this mold oil thing when he's forced to go down to the cellar to get spices for the kitchen. Conceptually, I love the fact that this mold is like some kind of forbidden culinary technique that takes advantage of Chowder's feelings, his inadequacy as a chef. I would say this is like kind of an interesting piece of lore, but I think it's overshadowed by the fact there's a skeleton in this cellar with Chowder's exact outfit on. Maybe this Chowder isn't the same Chowder we've always known, or maybe Mung Dal adopts these Chowders somewhat regularly due to the dangerous nature of the job. Or maybe this whole show takes place in purgatory and Chowder's actually a boy in a coma. Hey, I was just kidding. The episode is actually a lot cooler than I remember, with Chowder and Fungel becoming a mold kaiju that fights against a giant Mung Dal like something out of Godzilla. Overall, it's a really fun time.
Your ride is here!
In episode 12A, At Your Service, Mung Dal and Chowder are forced to work for Endive in order to get this rare mood fruit necklace. We get to see a bit more of Endive's mansion, with Chowder and Mung Dal acting as her maids. They get trapped in a cell with these grotatoes that they have to peel for their lives, otherwise they'll expand and destroy them all. And when all goes quiet, you'd think Chowder and Mung Dal are dead, but nah, they were just aura farming, like look at this. Overall, it's a bit of an odd episode for a lot of reasons, but I appreciate the vibrancy it gives to Endive's part in the world of Chowder. The next episode, Chowder and Mr. Fugu, has one of my favorite recurring characters, this floating balloon, Mr. Fugu. There's a lot of Japanese references here, with Fugu being the word for pufferfish, and being held by a lucky cat, also known as a maneki neko. The cat's name is foie gras, a French dish made from the fatty liver of duck or goose. Maybe they didn't want to make this episode too Japanese, or maybe they just thought this was a catchy name. Like, I guess characters don't usually resemble their food or nationality. Maybe the craziest part of this whole episode is the fact Mr. Fugu is voiced by George Takei. But yeah, this episode's pretty fun. My favorite part is this one scene where Chowder's taking Mr. Fugu around as his valet and steals Fugu's ice cream by taking a bite out of the bottom of the cone. I used to love eating ice cream like this as a kid, so when I saw this, I was like, wow, they stole my tech. I felt seen. Also, Chowder lets go of Fugu, who floats away into the sky, and this is just such a hilarious shot to me. There's something so realistic, or maybe liminal about this shot. It just really intrigues me. So we have one last half hour of Chowder to talk about today for season 1. You may see Chowder's first season technically has 20 episodes, but according to the blog, Chowder's initial season was only 13 episodes before being extended into 20, so I'd like to focus a little more on those episodes in part 2 of this series. Funnily enough, this episode aired on June 5th, 2008, the premiere of The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, which is pretty funny to think about because I really associate these shows as like siblings or something. They really had a great niche together as part of Har Har Thursdays, Cartoon Network's new block for new cartoon episodes. Friday nights began to center more around movies, and I'd really love to know the logic behind this decision. While Fridays were super special for me because of the Friday night blocks, I do wonder if the logic was more that people will be home and watching new episodes on a Thursday night and maybe going out on Friday night, so we'll look more into this someday. In the vacation, Chowder, Mung, and Schnitzel plan a beach trip to go heat up some donuts. The sun isn't magically stronger at the beach or anything, but I guess it doesn't matter cause Chowder gets them all locked in the bathroom. Mungdal tries to rizz up the door to open it, but that doesn't work.
Hey there. I hear you might be a little stuck. What say you be a peach and open up for me and my friends here? Oh, so that's how you're gonna be. Well, fine. You just lost out on this, baby!
I love the design of this bathroom, like the elephant faucet is so elegant and charming. The episode's nothing too crazy, can't say I'm a huge fan, but I really do love this bathroom. Even this toilet is so pretty to me. So the final episode for today's video is the Sleep Eater, where Chowder has a little sleep-eating demon inside of him and gets chained to his bed to prevent any more raids of the kitchen.
Mom, I have to pee.
Untie him, Schnitzel. Well, go!
I just did.
Tie him back up, Schnitzel.
You might be thinking, wouldn't truffles be powerful enough to do this? Well, I present to you my favorite joke in all of Chowder.
Oh, what about me?
No, you're not in this episode.
Yeah, she doesn't come back after this. Everyone helps Chowder fight off his hungry werewolf infliction for the night, fixing Chowder's food cycle and saving the day. A really interesting note to end season 1 on. I don't think it really had any significance as the finale, or at least the initial finale of season 1. But that's where we'll end today's video for season 1 of Chowder. There's still so much to the lore of Chowder's production I can't wait to tell you all about, with a lot of fan favorite episodes coming up next time. So we'll end today's video with Chowder eating Chowder. Thanks for watching, and thanks so much to my Patreon and Ko-fi supporters. Your contributions help me a lot and mean the world to me. Alright, I'll talk to you next time. Bye.